What is up, podcast listeners? My name is Cornelius English, and welcome back to the Real Talk Pod, episode 2. This time we're back with Hoodie and David, same guest as last time. Great friends of mine, great people, great to listen to, great to have a discussion with. We also brought along two new guests. One of them is Vince. He was only with us for a short period of time, but just some short info on him. He ran a child molestation ring inside the only Chuck E. Cheese in Geneva. And the other guest, who we had a lengthy discussion with, he will absolutely become a regular. His name is Mr. Benis. He's a very intellectual man. Very, very intellectual. He has 4 degrees. 4 degrees. He's gone to multiple schools. He's got a history in the military. Trust me, when he starts talking about himself, you're gonna want to listen. Well, that's all I've got for now. Hope you enjoy the show. Hello there. Welcome back. We're back with Hoodie and David. And
Hoodie the bitch, man.
Vince, that was actually our new guest today. His name is Vince. He's a little peculiar. That's particularly because he was recently fired from his position as general manager at the only Chuck E. Cheese in Geneva. We'll be talking more about that later. And we also have Mr. Benis, who is a very interesting man with a lot of education in his background and a lot of military experience. So he is a veteran. So be sure to salute your way through this podcast. Anyway, as we start, I just want to ask what you folks are up to, if anything happened while we were gone.
Yo, I got one thing to say real quick. I got one thing to say.
Yes, sir. Very interesting. All right, so Hoodie, you were telling me before we started recording that you had an interesting story.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm very glad to be back. It's an honor to be back on this great podcast. But my story, so last week you talked about taking NyQuil, am I right? In our last podcast?
Yeah, of course.
And I wanted to try it out, and it was like 2 days ago. I downed half a bottle of NyQuil, and I went to sleep. It was a great night's sleep, let me tell you that. But I woke up, and it was the biggest ego death that I had ever come under.
Classic.
And the thing is, while that happened, I really wanted to kill myself because I was thinking about things like I'm worthless. I really didn't have friends.
Typical.
And, I had a knife at my desk and I was thinking about ending it all. And you guys remember my Japanese philosophical friend, right?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, so he's a major in philosophy, and one of his main hopes is he has to go in those inspirational quote websites, and he has to memorize every single inspirational quote that he can. And the way he does it is he sends me quotes over text just so that I can see them and that he can memorize them. And the day that day when I was contemplating suicide, he sent me one inspirational quote, and what it read was insane. I mean, you're gonna think it's like Plato. It said, "Don't kill yourself. You matter."
Wow.
And I think that was so profound that I
Wow.
dropped the knife and I realized that life isn't defined by your failures, but it's defined by your ability to get back up and try again.
What a wonderful story you shared. Should I say, Hoodie? It just demonstrates once again how technology is changing our society in our everyday to day life.
That leads us to our next question, though. Do we live in a society?
Wow, that
Any
is
thoughts on this?
that
It's
is
a deep
something.
Deep question, in fact.
That is very deep, actually. Whether or not we live in a society has been discussed by tons of mind-numbingly intelligent philosophers throughout time, right? I mean, from Hoodee's Japanese friend to David's friend to my friend to I hear Mr.
Benis, do you
Benis
have a
has a friend
philosophical
too.
friend?
Yes, I have a friend who is a PhD philosophy student at Whitman, and for his final thesis for his PhD, he had to memorize and recite 100 different inspirational quotes off Pinterest.
That's pretty similar to the
That
training
is
you received for your
insane.
solo occupation of Poland, right?
Very similar. For my attempted solo occupation of Poland,
Oh yes, that's
I
right.
had I had to exercise my mind in other ways.
Interesting.
For example, I played checkers backwards every single day for a month leading up to
Wow.
my attempted occupation, and that really doing so really taught me the effects of strategy, and
Huh.
now I
And
can
the
see
effect on
why. Now I
society,
can.
I'd imagine.
Well, what was that, David?
I said I'd also imagine it taught you the effects of society.
Yeah.
Very well
Because
did.
it feels like sometimes that we're going backwards instead of forwards because society is becoming less societal, bro.
Yeah.
Are you
No.
saying it feels like we're only moving backwards?
Oh shit!
You
Wait.
know,
While that
sometimes
is
I
true,
do
I'd
think
have to
we
say
are.
the less I know, it is better.
Oh
Fact.
You
shit!
think so? Well,
Wait.
you bring up us moving backwards in society, and I think that is a very profound kind of thought because we're coming up with so much new technology, new medicine, new ways to live. I mean, but isn't that kind of rendering us useless again because we're so dependent on the things that we create? We just can't live like regular animals anymore. We're above natural selection.
I
What do you think?
actually I actually watched a movie that kind of touched on that topic. It was called Wall-E, right?
Yeah.
So in this movie, there were these robots that were just, all robotic, not human at all. And then there were these fat humans, right? And they were fat, right? They were really
Mm.
large. And I think what that really tells us is that sometimes when you eat too many calories, it creates a surplus in your body because you're not burning off enough, and this
Leads to
creates
an
more
unpleasant.
more fat cells, right? And this
Yeah.
causes you to gain fat in different parts of your body. Sometimes this deposits in your chest, your love handles, your midsection, your biceps. I mean, this is why people are fat, right? And when speaking of society, I think the question sometimes really is that do we live in one? And if we live in one, fat people do too, and they're lazy. So would we want to associate ourselves with a place known as society where there's also fat people?
Well, what if society is meant for the lazy people and people that don't live in society that see its flaws are meant for those who are elevated intellectually?
Or
Very
what if
deep points. I recall reading an article in the Jewish Scientists of Estonia scientific journal, volume 47, I believe, where they stated that in 2020, India will become such a superpower with technology that we won't even need our brains anymore because technology can do all the thinking for us.
You know, I have to disagree with that, and I'm not disagreeing with the Jewish establishment in Estonia, but I have to
The
disagree that
scientist establishment in Estonia.
signed whatever.
Estonian also.
they did a
I
BuzzFeed
Volume
article?
47.
I have to disagree with the idea, with the fanatical idea that India will become a superpower by January 1st, 2020. I mean,
You're
who
just
came
you're
up
just
who
being
came up
ignorant
with
right
that
now.
Yeah, I
idea?
think it's
You're
going to
being
become a superpower by January 1st, 2019.
Very good point. Very good point.
Interesting. I mean, why do you guys think that's going to happen?
It's quite a
India-
bigoted worldview, Hoodie. Wouldn't you say?
I mean,
If, if we live,
Mr. Venus,
Yeah, it's a tad racist.
India.
we live in a society, and India is in our society.
Well,
Just think about that.
have to
Think about
disagree
that
with
for a
you.
India
moment.
is the most
India doesn't
societal
exist.
society there is.
India does not exist. I mean, I
What?
read an article last night on Snapchat that the Philippines is the only country that exists.
Whoa.
This must be a really
You know-
new.
Well, that would
this
explain why everyone around me is Filipino. Like
Yeah,
my
I
parents
know.
just turned Filipino one day. I was like, "Mom, what happened?" Then she just started praying to me, and I was like, what's going on?"
And, and let me add on to this. This is why we need to kill all weed smokers.
Uh-huh.
You see?
This must be a relatively new article.
Yeah, it's pretty new. You should check it out. I
Pretty
saw it on
hip, I
Snapchat.
must
So.
say.
Yeah, it's on Snapchat, so it's pretty hip, and all the young people like it.
When you say weed, do you mean welfare, estrogen, edamame, Dorian
That
society?
that is exactly what I mean, and that's why we're sponsored by them.
Yes, we're sponsored by the Welfare, Estrogen, Edamame, Dorian Society, also known as WEED, because we believe that sometimes things hurt. And when things hurt, don't kill yourself because you matter. As I actually heard this quote just recently from a very intelligent man. His name was and I think someone who actually has experience with welfare and estrogen and the Dorian mode and eating edamame is actually our new guest, Mr. Benis, who,
Hello.
if I am reading your biography correctly, you fought in the Kurdish War,
I
and
did,
as
in
we
fact.
discussed, and you attempted to occupy Poland alone, which was unsuccessful, but still a very brave feat. And you have 4 degrees in anthropology, all bachelors, 2 from Whitman and 2 from Howard. Just talk about yourself for a second, because you are a very interesting man.
I did not know where to start. I've had such a wild life. When I was 16, I lived in a house all by myself, and
Wow.
little kids would come to my house just to masturbate with me. But at that age, I physically couldn't masturbate, so I had to peel over them, which was that right there. That was the first time in my life where I really learned the effects of
War.
society on our life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those
You-
kids
you-
beat the shit out of you after, didn't they?
Yeah.
Very,
That's
very well.
right.
They beat the shit out of me. Then later after that, at the age of 12, a reformed man trying to find his way in the world, I headed off to Kurdistan to fight in the Kurdish War. There, I married, got divorced 2 weeks later.
Uh-huh.
Then after the Kurdish War was finished, I headed off to college because, as we know in America,
For the
to be
third time,
successful. No, this was my first time. I was
all right.
I was 12 and a half when I headed off to college for the
Wow, you are a
That's
smart
wow.
individual.
And as we all know, to be successful in America, you need a college degree. But I don't
To be
want to be.
successful.
I don't want to be. I don't want to be just successful. I want to be 4 times as successful as other people.
Yeah.
So
Bruh.
I got 4 different college degrees. All 4 of
Wow.
them bachelors. All of them anthropology. 2 of them I got from Whitman in succession. Then I headed over to Howard and got them again.
That's
So
where you
with,
met your second wife, right, Howard?
yes,
Wait, Mr.
Can
Benis.
you tell us a little
Mr.
bit about her?
she was a queen. She was a queen.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a very heartbreaking story. I don't feel like going into it at this moment. I hope you understand.
Well,
Sorry
Mr.
for
Benis,
interrupting.
could you explain the environment and how it felt to be in an all African
Don't
kind of
say the
school?
B word.
Well,
Nope.
I'm actually a third. I'm actually a third African American myself. So as you understand,
Wow.
I fit in with I fit in very well there. I
With
joined.
the society.
Yeah, I fit in very well at Howard. I joined all the different clubs there, from the swimming team to the ping pong team. Then I later joined the Oh, that's correct.
You joined
I
the
joined
Poet
the
Society.
Yes, and then after that I joined the Libertarian Society, Libertarian Weed Smokers of Howard.
Okay.
Oh, that's known as gangweed, right?
Correct. Back then
Okay,
it was.
I need to get this off my chest. I know I said
Hold on, Hoodie. And then after that, I headed to Poland to attempt to occupy all of Poland by myself. I heard that many other people have done it before successfully, so I thought, why not? I had such a good run earlier in my life, so I might as well. I might as well. I had everything I needed. I had military training, strong education, so I took a plane. I stole a plane actually off to Poland, where I unsuccessfully, in a two-hour occupation of Poland, attempted to occupy it.
Now,
And yeah, that's my life story.
let me ask you this: in Poland, were you able to masturbate?
No, masturbation is illegal in all of Europe.
Interesting, and that kind of brings us to our next sponsor, which is the National Erectile Dysfunction Society. I mean, a lot of guys go through this, and if you ever need help about your little pecker, just give them a call. It helps a lot.
Adding on to that, talking about the NEDS, also known as NEDS, the National Erectile Dysfunction Society, that is. ED is a very troubling thing. A lot of times it can be a check engine light in many men, right? Because you can be 40 years old, all of a sudden you can't get it on, right? And this sometimes means further complications in your body like heart disease, diabetes, many other things. So I think everyone should get themselves checked out every now and then. Try to like get one up there, up in the sky, high and high, just to make sure you don't have heart disease.
Very
It's
interesting.
a horrible thing,
Yeah.
May I add a personal story about my experience with erectile dysfunction?
Sure.
Oh yeah,
sure.
yes, of course.
I, as a older gentleman, have difficulty using the bathroom because of my erectile dysfunction. So after I unzip my pants, my what do you call it? Hram?
From, yes.
Yes.
Oh
hram.
yeah. I know what
It
you
has
mean.
difficulty going straight. So when I try to pee, it goes all on the floor.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
That's what happens to me usually, except I usually just like face the wrong way and I end up peeing all over the wall. And I used to do that all the time as a kid, especially. And every time I do it, my mom would show me how to pee, but I just never got it down until I was like 25.
That is
you guys
really
have that
tragic.
experience?
Because in our society, erectile dysfunction is happening at such a young age.
We need
Isn't that insane?
I think it's in the water, if I'm being honest, right?
Yeah.
Everyone who has ever had ED has had a glass of water. Am I not wrong? I mean,
Correct.
am I not
I would
right?
agree with that.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. This is a very clear causation effect, right? It's not correlation. If you drink water, you have had ED. Ask any 99-year-old man. All right, it's a fact.
So you think the government is putting stuff in our water
It's
to make
unquestionable.
men have
And that's
ED?
why 90% of males have erectile dysfunction, right?
Interesting.
All right, Hoodie. Try going 16 months without water, right?
Yeah, I feel like I just die.
Yeah. How come something so simple with no calories, with no nutrients? How come it's necessary? Because it's a drug. The government has made you dependent on it.
That's a very interesting point. Are you okay?
I believe we're having some connection issues.
Speaking of thoughts, I'd like to introduce our next sponsor, which is the National Philosophy Association.
That's interesting.
Philosophy is a topic that needs to be raised. That the awareness of it needs to be raised. I have a friend named, and this one time he told me, I believe I told you in the last episode, that to look is to see. And I'd like to expand upon that quote because I think the significance of it was trivialized in the last episode.
Of course.
And so what that quote means is that you look at something, right? And sometimes you just look at it, but you really pay attention to it, right? Like you're looking at that thing, right? Like it's in your eyesight, right? But at a certain level of focus, you begin to see it. And once you begin to see it, you begin to understand it. And once you begin to understand it, you begin to understand yourself. And self-understanding is key in the fight against erectile dysfunction. And speaking of, I found another cure for erectile dysfunction, if you will, and it's actually something you guys have tried out. It's NyQuil, and generally, ego deaths will be associated with a loss of erectile dysfunction. Sometimes you'll lose your penis too, but I think the risk is worth the reward. If I'm going to be totally honest, because me personally, I had the worst ego death ever. Like, I thought my heart stopped, and then after I thought my heart stopped, I thought that I was the most worthless person on the planet, you know. But after I had that thought of worthlessness, I just remembered that to look is to see.
Yeah.
And then I pulled down my pants and I looked at down there, you know, and I just kept looking, and I saw it.
Wow.
And I saw it. It went up. It went straight up. It hit my ceiling. It was so.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my
That is
God!
probably one of the most inspirational stories. I actually have something similar, right? So one time I was standing next to someone who claimed, all right, that they claimed that they were hearing impaired, right?
Okay.
And I was talking to them. They were very clearly attempting to hear, but they weren't listening, right? And
Exactly.
Precisely.
and my friend Ahmed told me, as I stated in the last episode, that to hear is to listen, right? And this alleged hearing impaired person just wasn't listening to me. And to be honest, I don't even think he was trying to hear, all right? And this is something that I think we see a lot of in communities that claim to be deaf,
In our
right?
society.
People who claim to be deaf are the biggest narcissists I've ever met in my life. They just do not care to hear anything you have to say. They don't care. They don't even respond. All right, they only
don't want to listen to you.
Yeah,
This behavior is just unacceptable.
I completely agree with you.
You know, wait,
We need to eradicate the deaf.
Let me add on to that. So, deaf people. So, last year I spent maybe a month in South Side of Chicago, and it's obviously a very different environment. Places like Poland, America, Texas,
The Philippines.
The Philippines, and I came across a word that they use, and it's blunt. And I thought it was very interesting because they had managed to cure every single disease using blunts. And let me continue on this. So deaf people,
what is this blunt you speak of?
You know,
It's
I'm not
slang
sure.
that they use in the South Side for it's for marijuana wrapped in a tobacco paper. It's very unique. Trust me.
Yeah. So let me continue.
Can
If
you
you
cure
being Guatemalan
with this blunt?
That's what I'm getting to. Okay, so if you go to the South Side of Chicago, you will never meet a deaf person. You will never meet
Guatemalan,
and you'll never meet anyone that has any kind of illnesses. And
you're gonna meet like a lot of like
intellectuals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And let me tell you why. I managed to see, it was in someone's house. The house was pretty large. It was a very rich, affluent house, right? And the things they did with this blunt, all right. Sorry, I have a cough.
Bless you.
To cure deafness, you put one blunt in your ear, and then you drink water. And I know you said that water is something that the government controls, but that's what they do, and it cures deafness.
Exactly. If you hit it all the way, if you get the blunt all the way to your pineal gland, you begin to experience DMT-like symptoms.
Yeah.
And once the symptoms subside, your IQ gets raised about 35 points. And honestly, that's why it's such a popular home remedy. It's pretty much eradicating the use of medical professionals. any sort of antibiotic is pretty much like fading out of existence because of this new tried and true method. I just think that there's not enough awareness about it for
And it's the
all these
government,
big
it's
pharma
society's fault.
corporations and
Yeah.
all these
They don't want
goddamn
you know.
penny
They don't
pinching
want you knowing.
doctors to get completely eradicated. And speaking of penny pinching, this brings us to our next sponsor. I mentioned the sponsor last episode, but it's important to continue awareness for this horrible tragedy. The International Holocaust Awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Holocaust was a horrible event. Lots of pennies were burned, lots of lives were lost, and I
And
would
that
rather
sucks.
to this topic because it's a bit emotional for me. But I
Yeah.
just would like to shout out such an important sponsor.
Yeah, but that particularly rings true to me. I was actually alive in the Holocaust. You see, back in 2012.
Oh wow, it's so sad to hear someone cry while speaking.
I'm
It's
sorry,
a very tough thing to say. Yeah, I know.
Tears, but the Holocaust of 2012. My wife, she actually left me because of it. That was the incident that happened that I just couldn't bring up earlier.
Was this the second or the eighth wife?
The second wife that left me in 2000 because of the 2012 Holocaust, and you see, everything just started changing at that point. There were earthquakes, and the ground started opening up, and water was flooding the entire world back in 2012. So
no wonder
we had to. Me and my wife had to find this ship, but she was afraid of ships, so she stayed behind and drowned while I was on the ship, and that's how we got divorced. Back in the Holocaust of 2012.
Let me tell you,
That's a
Mr.
tragedy.
Benis, bitches like that, dumb bitches. Let me tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
I do believe that is legally binding.
Chose
Actually,
not to drown, but she did drown, and now you're sad, and she's dead.
What a dumb bitch.
Yeah.
Now her whole body's water, not just her brain. Think about that.
My chram is very down there.
that's what supporting big government does to you. You drown.
You drown in society.
Exactly.
Cornelius, what other subjects do we have planned for this discussion?
You know, wait. Before Cornelius adds something, I just wanted to add something. When we were talking about erectile dysfunction, I saw this fact on Instagram. It said that any male that tries to pee with an erection, so it's obviously very hard, and women who are pregnant feel maybe 0.5% of the pain that men feel when they try to pee with an erection.
Completely true.
I just wanted to add that.
It's something that doesn't get enough.
I can confirm.
Yeah.
This one time I got slapped on the bosom. It hurt pretty badly. So continue, Cornelius.
I actually want to bring something up. So earlier in this episode, we had someone named Vince on the program, right?
Racist.
While we were actually recording, right, the FBI ended up raiding his home and taking him away because they found out that while he was general manager at Chuck E. Cheese, the only Chuck E. Cheese in Geneva, that is.
Wow.
He actually he actually in the ball pit showed and exposed his elbow to a young child, right? And this is reprehensible behavior, right? I can't even begin to denounce such a thing. I mean, this is a man who was married to Brad Pitt when Brad Pitt was in his elementary school years and was in a relationship recently with Courtney Love, who is now,
Didn't he murder Kurt Cobain? Courtney Love?
I do believe Courtney Love had a lot to do with Kurt Cobain's death. However, it should be noted that Kurt Cobain actually loved Chuck E. Cheese, and his song "Rape Me" is actually a tribute to to Vince and his work he did in Geneva at Chuck E. Cheese. Actually, every time Nirvana played a concert in Geneva, they would play in the ball pit at Chuck E. Cheese, and this is just full circle. I don't know what to say.
The entire set list would only be Rape Me. It was very, very profound.
I know.
It would be just the chorus of Rape Me Too.
Oh, yes, yes.
Just
now,
2 hours straight of that.
I actually want to
very life-changing act.
That is
saw them in Woodstock 1872.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very unique experience.
Woodstock on July 4th, 1776 was fucking amazing. I remember.
I wanted to go there, but I got into a car accident that time, so I couldn't go. But
unfortunate. In Woodstock 1872, we took a bunch of aspirin and just tripped out all day. Pretty fun.
That does sound fun.
It's fucking dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I was thinking about it the other day, and why are the tightest things so loose sometimes? Like I just want everything to be tight, but it's not. You know what I'm saying?
I think you mean to say tight.
Yeah. So I
mean, are you talking about?
I get emotional talking about it.
Are you talking about vagina?
I like me and my homie Mike. We were. I'm sorry. I change voices when I talk about it too. Well, sorry, dude. This one time he was like, "Dude, you want to go to Red Robin?" And I was like, "Yeah, and I went to Red Robin and I got the cake. And once I got the cake, I was like, and I don't want to tell the rest of it. It's too traumatic. But
that is actually a very, very tragic story.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if our audience were crying right now.
I actually have a similar story, right? I was actually in a competition back in my high school days in which I won, and I ended up winning a $50 Red Robin gift card, right? Which I never use, and I do believe it's still active. So if any one of our listeners...
Can I have it?
Do you want it, Mr. Benis?
Yes.
I would gladly give it to you. I was actually going to announce sweepstakes for a lucky audience member.
Yeah.
What's that, Devin?
I actually live in a Red Robin right now.
Oh, wow. In the bathroom?
Wow.
No, in the kitchen.
Interesting.
And
no, actually, the kitchen. It's in
Oswego.
It's in Filipino land, and
okay.
Yeah, it's in Joliet.
I was hoping it was the only Red Robin in all of Geneva, actually.
Okay, but I sleep in one of the booths that's usually taken up, so yeah.
Oh, okay.
So are you? How are you liking your life right?
It's pretty good. I'm thinking about going to
going back to school.
University of Illinois in Chicago in Philippines to get my 5th anthropology degree.
Oh wow, you
are intellectual.
I do strive to be one. That is correct.
Wow. I've always wished that I could have your willpower, but some people are just not meant for it.
It takes a lifetime of work to get this type of willpower.
I actually have a story about willpower, right? So, I once had a friend named Will, right? Now, this friend of mine, let's call him William so I don't expose him, right? So my friend William, he was very into power. And actually in 2016, my friend Willery decided that he wanted to run for president for the 18th time, right? So Willery ended up running against our current president, Donald J. Trump, and Donald Trump actually ended up winning. And when my friend Willery found out that I, in fact, voted for Donald J. Trump because of his amazing stance on immigration, just completely
Yeah.
pro-immigration. Probably one of my favorite presidents on
Definitely.
foreign policy and immigration. And
Definitely.
and I think that's particularly why Willery was mad at me, because I voted for him, and that's actually why we're actually sponsored this episode, and this is our last sponsor for the night. We're sponsored by the Trump 2K16 Super PAC. A couple years late, but they did finally reach out to me via Venmo. It's the email was trumpsuperpack2k16@gmail.com. So we know it's authentic.
Yeah.
So yeah, we basically sent them about $18,000 just so we could say their name on here, because they said they would shoot it out to all the supporters. So
Wow.
so my friend Willery, he refuses to talk to me, and I think that's a testament to how willpower is something that could be truly tragic. And
I agree.
I
mean,
think that's
your friend just sounds insolent. I don't. Forgive me for saying that, but that's what it.
Not my friend anymore, pal.
Yeah.
So I do believe this is where we'll have to cut it short. This was a fun time. We should be back with the same crew next week. Would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, everyone. Remember to look to see.
Any last statements or words? Any stories?
Remember, guys, before I say goodbye, don't kill yourself because you matter.
Touching words from a touching man. All right, so we're going to have to end it here. I would like to thank our sponsors for sticking with us throughout this episode. I would also like to thank Mr. Benis for coming on and being an interesting man to discuss with.
Thanks for having me.
All right, goodbye.